First came the sound of children crying, then the sound of a door. Then a man came down the stairs, quiet, confused, with a face that looked as if he had not slept all night. His father lived downstairs. When the door opened, the man stood in front of him. Two children were beside him. He did not scream. He did not run. He did not even explain properly what had happened. He only pushed the children forward and said, "Take care of them." His father did not understand. A few seconds later, his son continued, "I killed my wife." Then he left the house to buy cigarettes. And sometimes, the most terrifying crime scenes begin with ordinary things. Not with screaming, not with horror music, not with an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes, everything happens inside a normal apartment in Tehran. In a house where the parents live downstairs, and the son, his wife, and their two children live upstairs. A house that, from the outside, looks no different from thousands of others. But that day, the upstairs apartment was no longer just a home. It was more like a room where nothing had escaped, except silence. This is one of those cases where the line between crime, fear, belief, illness, and delusion becomes blurred. A case where the killer did not say he acted out of anger. He did not say there had been an argument. He did not say it was about money, betrayal, or revenge. He said something else. Something that made even the officers pause for a moment. He said, "The jinn told me to do it." The case goes back to 2019. A 42-year-old man in Tehran lived with his wife and two children on the upper floor of his father's house. From the outside, their life may have looked ordinary. The man worked, the children went to school, his wife took care of the home. There were family visits. His parents lived downstairs. But inside the house, something had been changing for a while. The man was no longer the same. Slowly, he had started saying things that at first may have sounded only strange to the people around him. He said there were voices in the house. He said something was moving around him. He said there were beings that others could not see. And most importantly, he said his wife was trying to kill him. At first, perhaps the family thought it was only suspicion, a passing thought, a kind of domestic paranoia. But some thoughts, if left untreated, spread like a dark stain across a wall. At first they are small. Then, little by little, they cover everything. The man said the voices warned him. They told him not to eat the food. They told him his wife had put something in it. They told him to be careful. Every time he sat down to eat, food was no longer food to him. It had become a threat, a trap, something to fear. He would ask his wife to eat first. At first she was surprised. Then she became upset. Then she became afraid. Because when the person living beside you begins to believe, more and more each day, that you are his enemy, the house is no longer a home. It becomes a waiting room for disaster. His wife told him he needed to see a psychiatrist. She told him these thoughts were not normal. She told him it was impossible to live with someone who believed his own wife was trying to kill him. But the man believed what he was hearing. Not as a thought, not as a possibility. To him, the voices were real. So real that they took away his sleep. At night, he stayed awake. He sat in the darkness of the house, listening, waiting. And every small sound in the building, every movement in the kitchen, every door opening or closing, could become a new sign. His wife left the house several times. She stayed away. She returned to her father's home. Maybe she thought distance would calm things down. Maybe she thought that if she stayed away for a few days, he would come back to himself. Maybe she simply needed to breathe. But later, with the family's mediation, she returned. A return that was supposed to bring the home back together. But some returns are not really returns home. They are returns to the final scene. The night before the incident, the house was not peaceful. Even if someone had looked from outside and seen the lights, they may have thought the family was sleeping. But inside the man's mind, everything was awake. The voices, the fears, the images, the belief that his wife was going to kill him. The belief that if he did nothing, he would be the victim. This is the point where the case moves beyond a family dispute and enters the dark, not a supernatural darkness, but the darkness of a mind that can no longer separate reality from fear. On the morning of the incident, Tehran woke up like any other day. Cars moved through the streets, shops opened their shutters, people left their homes for work, school, and errands. No one in the street knew that inside one of the city's homes, a woman was living the last hours of her life. Inside that house, the man entered the bedroom. His wife was there. He was still carrying the same question inside him. Why do you want to kill me? She was probably tired. Tired of hearing the same accusation again and again. Tired of living with someone who no longer saw her as his wife. Tired of living in a home where every day she had to prove she was not a killer. The argument escalated, but this time, it did not end like the others. A few hours later, the woman was no longer alive. The man remained in the room, not in peace, not in comfort, but in a state he would later describe as the end of the voices. As if, after what happened, his mind had gone quiet. And that is the most frightening part. Because for him, the crime was the end of a nightmare. But for everyone else, it was only the beginning. Around noon, the man left the room. He took the children. He went downstairs, and he told his father to take care of them. Imagine being a father, standing in front of your son, hearing him say something your mind refuses to accept. Imagine the children standing beside him. Imagine that just a few steps above you, a woman is lying in a room. A woman who, only hours earlier, had been the mother of those children. The father called the police. Officers from Gandhi police station in Tehran arrived at the scene.
A home that, until that day, had been only a family home became a crime scene. The stairs, the apartment door, the bedroom, the objects inside the house, everything suddenly had a new meaning. In crime scenes, sometimes the ordinary things are the most frightening. A glass on a table, a toy beside the wall, a child's clothes on the couch, a family photograph. Because these things remind you that before the crime, life was still happening. Someone had been eating breakfast. Someone had been getting the children ready. Someone had been thinking about school, shopping, bills, food, and normal daily tasks. And then, in one moment, everything was cut off. The man had left the house. He had said he was going out to buy cigarettes, but police believed he might return. Officers searched the area. Soon they found him near his home. He tried to resist, but he was arrested. During questioning, he did not deny the main facts, but his explanation was as dark as the case itself. He said the voices had been tormenting him. He said they told him his wife wanted to kill him. He said he had done it to save himself. And then he said that now, the voices were gone. That sentence should be read slowly, because its terror is not in shouting. It is in how quiet it is. The voices are gone now. In his mind, the killing was not simply a crime. It was a way to silence something he could not escape. But what about the children? What about the woman's family? What about the father who had to call the police? What about the mother who would never come home again? The voices may have ended for him, But for everyone else, they had just begun. After the interrogation, the investigator ordered that the suspect's mental health be examined by forensic medical experts. That part of the case is important, because when someone says the jinn ordered him to kill, the main question is not only whether he is lying. The deeper question is this: what was the state of his mind at the time of the incident? Was he fully responsible from a psychiatric point of view? Was he experiencing hallucinations? Had the people around him seen the warning signs and failed to take them seriously? Or was he hiding behind a strange claim after committing the crime? These are the questions that make cases like this complicated, because on the surface the answer seems simple. A woman was killed. Her husband confessed. It is a criminal case. But underneath, the story is even more disturbing. A house that had shown warning signs months before the killing. A man who spoke of voices. A woman who told him he needed treatment. A family that may have believed the problem could be solved with separation, reconciliation, mediation, and patience. But some wounds do not heal with patience. They grow deeper, until one day, they swallow everything. This case is frightening for YouTube, but not because of jinn. It is frightening because it shows that sometimes the monster does not enter the house from outside. Sometimes it forms inside the house, in silence, in sleepless nights, in repeated suspicions, in sentences that seem strange at first and then become dangerous. The most terrifying part of the story is not that the man said the jinn gave him an order. The most terrifying part is that before the incident, the signs were already there. He said he heard voices. He said his wife wanted to poison him. He did not sleep at night. He saw his wife as his enemy. And yet, life continued. The children were still in the house. The woman had still returned. The parents still lived downstairs. The mornings still began. Food was still cooked. Doors still opened and closed. Until one day, everything stopped. In old stories, when people said a house was haunted by jinn, they looked for footsteps, shadows on the wall, or dishes moving by themselves. But in this case, if something had haunted that house, maybe it was not a jinn. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was an untreated illness. Maybe it was a belief that became more real inside the man's mind every day. Maybe it was a voice that did not come from outside, but from within. And that makes it even more frightening, because you can run away from an abandoned house. You can leave a dark forest. You can walk out of a room that feels wrong. But if the voice is inside the mind of someone living beside you, where are you supposed to hide? If someone believes more and more every day that you are his enemy, how do you prove that you are not? If someone mistakes his fear for truth, what kind of logic can stop him? That day in Tehran, after the father's call, after the police arrived, after the suspect was arrested, the house never returned to what it had been. Not for the children, not for the victim's family, not for the parents who lived downstairs, and suddenly realized that tragedy had happened only a few steps above them. And perhaps, years later, if someone passes by that building, they will see nothing unusual. Only a house, a door, a few windows, the ordinary sound of life. But inside that case, one question still follows you. When the man first said he was hearing voices, who should have been afraid? And if someone had been more afraid back then, would this woman still be alive? This story is not about jinn. It is about something more terrifying. It is about the moment when a thought grows so large inside a human mind that it takes the place of reality. It is about a house where danger did not come from outside. It is about children who had a mother in the morning and only silence by noon. So if one day someone close to you says they hear voices giving them orders, if they say someone is putting poison in their food, if they say the closest person in their life is their enemy, do not treat it like a strange comment, because some crimes introduce themselves long before they happen. Not with blood, not with screaming, not with broken glass, but with one quiet sentence in the darkness of a home. A voice told me.